A while ago, a viewer asked about strategies for transposing tunes, especially in the moment of a gig, and that's a great skill to have. So let's take some time today talking about ways to transpose tunes in the moment. Welcome to Learn Jazz Bass with Matt Rybicki. I'm glad that you're here. Well, we are talking about transposing tunes today, and like the viewer mentioned, it's possible to use the iReal Pro app, of course, which very quickly can transpose tunes to other keys, but we don't want to rely on that as a crutch. In fact, if you don't have to read the tunes at all, you're going to have a much better experience yourself, and also I feel like it helps you to participate in the music that is happening in the moment because your eyes aren't on the page, you're listening to the other players, which is really important, and you're engaging in the music. Anyway, so let's just say, for argument's sake, that the iReal Pro app isn't available, and let's teach ourselves to have a little bit more of a tool that's going to help us to get inside tunes, and it's just going to increase a bunch of things about our musical abilities. So the ability to transpose a tune into another key quickly has three sort of techniques that can apply independently, and you can also apply them all together. And in fact, when I'm doing this in the moment, especially under moments of pressure, all three of these things come into play, or can come into play. The first has to do with being able to hear the bass root movement of the chords. Not necessarily the chord qualities, the root movement. The next thing would be to be able to understand the harmonic analysis of the tune, understand the harmony, the underlying structure, and then be able to apply that to a new key. And then the third thing is to be able to use intervals while you are looking at a page. Let's say you don't know the song, to be able to use intervals to quickly be able to transpose those chords to the appropriate new key. So as I say, the first thing that is really, really helpful is to be able to understand in our ear, in our mind's ear, the root movement of the chords. And so a great way to do that is to sing along while you're playing, and ideally to be able to sing without the bass. The tune I chose today for us to work on is Duke Ellington and Billy Strayhorn's Take the A Train. I think you're all probably relatively familiar with it, and the chord changes are not that complicated, and there's some time in between to sort of think about what's happening. There's not a lot of chords. So working on that first thing of being able to hear the root movement in your ear and apply that to when you're putting in another key, let's sing along with the root movement as we play. So generally it's played in C, bar 2, then it goes up to D, D. Here's D minor, G, C, and then maybe a turn around, C, C. I shouldn't say the notes. 2. Let's say I want to go up a half step. I'm up a half step. Now say you want to go up another half step. So as you can see, while my voice is terrible, I still have a sense of what that root movement is. And that's going to inform you as you go on to put it into other keys. That's going to help you. And in fact, if that's all you rely on, that's actually fantastic. If you don't think about the analysis and so on, that's actually great because you're just using your ear, which is fantastic. The thing is, we also have to, of course, understand what those chord qualities are. I'm just singing the root movement, right? But the chord qualities can be more, to me, if you're able to hear them all together, that's great. If you can't, you can at least sort of memorize the basics of it, right? We know the first one is a C major 6 usually, or a C6 chord. And when we're sort of learning the tune, we realize that that second chord has something different in the chord quality. There's something a little bit unusual. Technically, it's a D minor 7 sharp 11. Some people say flat 5. I prefer, I'm sorry, not D minor 7, D7 sharp 11. Or D9 sharp 11. Nonetheless, we know it's a dominant chord with a sharp 11 on it. So you sort of memorize that ahead of time or analyze that ahead of time. So using this singing is going to help. Number 2 is the analysis, the Roman numeral analysis. And so when we are going back to the key of C, we look at the page and we see it's in the key of C and we see it starts on a C6 and that is the 1 chord. So we know we've got the 1 chord for 2 bars. So we're going to analyze that for bars 1 and 2. Now bars 3 and 4 do something that gives the whole tune its distinctive sound. And when we are looking, listening, and so on and so forth, these are the kinds of moments that we really want to pay attention to when we're learning, because that is going to give the unique quality, the character of the song, its special thing. And so here, this chord gives it a special sound. And this movement is used in other standards, but this particular sound with this sharp 11, it's part what they're putting in the melody, in what Duke and Billy Strayhorn put in the melody. They play the sharp 11 there, which is G sharp, over the D7. So anyways, we got 1 for 2 bars, and then we've got this other chord that's happening. Now, you can analyze it a bunch of ways. I'm all for the practicality of just going like, okay, I know the root is D, which is the 2nd degree, and so we would call that a 2 chord. And I know the chord quality is this dominant sharp 11. So I'm just going to call it a 2-7 sharp 11. But basically I'm thinking like it's the 2 of the key, but the chord quality is, so I'm sort of separating it. The root is the 2 of the key, and there's 7 sharp 11. Then for bars 5 and 6, 7, 8, and so on, we see it's all a big 2-5. D minor 7, G7 to C6 again, and then possibly another turnaround or 2-5 in there going back to the 2nd A. So very quickly I've got 3/4 of the tune memorized because there's 3 A's. And the A is just one major of some kind, sometimes major 7 or 1-6, then a 2 dominant chord with a sharp 11 on it, then a 2-5-1. That's it. The bridge, check out what happens in the bridge. It goes basically up a 4th. I mean, it is the major 4 chord. It's 4 major 7. You could also think that perhaps it changes keys temporarily to the key of F, so the key changes up a 4th. That's not so critical when you're doing it in the moment. What we just want to really think about is obviously that initial movement, that movement of the moment does go up a 4th. The chord quality is major, so it's either a 4 major 7 or it goes to the key of F major with the 1 major there. Point is, you are finding some way to identify what you want to call that chord. So let's just call it 4 major 7 for our purposes. The bridge starts on the 4 major 7 of the key, and then it sometimes you heard me doing this sort of descending chromatic thing that goes to, again, the 2 dominant, same sort of thing we had in the A's for a brief time, and then goes to 2 minor, and then to the 5-7. And then once we've figured out what the bridge is, then we know the A is the same as the others. So we can apply all that same information to another key. If I want to take the A train in the key of B flat instead of C, I can think of it with the harmonic analysis. I've got the 1 chord for 2 bars, B flat major 6 or B flat 6. Then I've got a 2 dominant with a sharp 11, C. A C chord is the 2 chord in the key of B flat. C7, sharp 11. Then we've got a 2-5-1. C minor 7, F 7, B flat 7. Those are the A sections. 1, 2, 7, sharp 11, 2, minor 7, 5, 7, 1, 7. Now we know the bridge goes up the 4th. E flat major 7, 4 major 7 for 4 bars. Then it goes down to the 2, 7. This is 2 dominant 7, 2 minor 7, 5, 7, and then there's actually a flat 9 in the next one, but, and then back to the A's. B 1, 2, 2 minor, 5, 7, 1. So you can apply that to any key, and all this stuff of analyzing it and thinking this way and so on and so forth on your own, particularly is really helpful for reinforcing all this both harmonic and oral information when you are learning a tune and when you're playing. To be able to manipulate a tune, you really need to understand it. And so applying all these things are going to help you to really, really understand it. As a quick aside, as I mentioned, it is really helpful to do this on your own, to actually practice doing this in the safety of your own practice room, because if you are called on to do it on a gig and you have never done it before, you can't just immediately sort of analytically apply this stuff we're talking about right here. You have to have a little bit of experience doing it. For me personally, I was just thrown in the deep end. I think that happens to a lot of people, and I failed many times. And it occurred to me after a few times of having my hat handed to me because I wasn't playing the right chords, oh, I need to actually become more familiar with how to do this, because this is going to be called on in different scenarios. For example, when I'm in the house band for jam sessions years ago, that's happened multiple times. I'm in one right now. You know you have to be ready for a singer to come up, very, very common for a singer to want to do a tune in a different key. Thankfully, usually we're talking about American songbook standards that aren't terribly complicated, except for Stella by Starlight. But it's not like a Wayne Shorter tune. They're asking to do in another key, usually. But so practicing this at home and feeling there is some sense of familiarity with it is going to help you a lot in your ability to put it right on the spot and do it right on the spot. So then the third thing we talked about was to use your analytical mind and use your eyes to visually transpose the tune using intervals. And this is something when you are completely unfamiliar with the tune and they ask you to do it in another key. And this has happened to me on many occasions. A piece of paper is put in front of you, right on the bandstand, and they say, oh, but we're going to do it down a whole step, or we're going to do it up a 4th, or actually, can we do this in the key of B major? And you see it's in the key of whatever, G major. And so I don't know the tune, and I've never practiced this on my own, and I don't have time to analyze it and figure out the harmonic analysis. I don't know what the bass movement exactly sounds like because I've never heard the tune before. So what you can do is say, okay, you figure out what that first interval is, either down a whole step or up a 4th or down a major 3rd, like my last example, B to G. And then you apply that interval to every chord that comes after. I mean, the good news is you only have to figure out one time what the new interval of the new key is. So if you're in D flat and the key is written in D flat and then they ask you to do it in G flat, everything is up a 4th. Great. What you got to be very, very confident though in is what is a perfect 4th up from every single note. Because you've got to change the root movement to every single note. Now, thankfully, you don't have to change your, you don't have a created bass line, so you can improvise on those new chords, but you still have to be able to change the chords themselves to a new key that is up a 4th. So if we were to do that if I were seeing Take the A Train for the very first time, and I did not know it, just as an example, to stick with what we're using, they say, okay, we want to do it in the key of F, for example. But they don't say this is up, we're not going to do it up a 4th. They're just saying, all right, let's do A Train, but let's do it in F. So I look at this very quickly. I'm assuming the first chord is the 1 chord. If somebody hands you a tune and it's very complicated and it's impossible to get any kind of information right at the first, they're really just setting you up for failure. That can happen sometimes, but generally they're not going to ask you to do something that it shouldn't be relatively obvious what's happening. I can see that by a very quick scan of this, that it is in the key of C and it starts on C, and so that's probably the 1 chord, so I'm going to assume that's the 1 chord, but even if it's not, okay, so I can start a little bit of harmonic analysis. My point is, even if it's not, They say it's in the key of F. I've quickly assessed that the first chord is the 1, so that C, they want it to be an F. That's up a fourth from C. So every chord that comes after is now up a fourth. So rather than C, I'm going to start on F. 1, 2, and now up a fourth from D is G. And I'm going to stay there because I'm still at G. And then up a fourth from G is C. Up a fourth from C is F. It's hard to talk and do this at the same time. Again, up the F. G7 is up a fourth from D. G minor. C7's up a fourth from G7. It's hard to do and talk. Up a fourth from F is B flat. I've got 4 chords to figure out what's coming next. 4 bars. Up a fourth from D. G. Up a fourth from D again, G. Up a fourth from G is C. Up a fourth, F. I don't know why I'm reading it. G is up from D. G, then C7 up from G. F major again is up from C. So while a little bit awkward to talk and do it here, I hope that was a little bit helpful as to sort of the way I'm thinking. I'm looking ahead. I'm going, okay, what's up a fourth from this chord? What's up a fourth from this note, actually? That's really what I'm doing, is what's up a fourth from the bass note, what's up a fourth, and then I'm applying the chord quality in the moment. So you've got to be looking ahead a bit or be extraordinarily fast. I mean, you always have to be looking ahead a little bit when you're reading, but if there's something that isn't really, really obvious, or there's a lot of chords, you really got to push that ability to look forward even more, because you've got to quickly sort of calculate transposition very quickly. Sometimes you're given an interval that you need to change that is not quite as easy. For example, they might say like down a major third, like I said, and that can be a little bit, require a little bit of extra step of thought. Even for those of us who are more familiar and confident in our intervals, if they were to say, do this in A flat, and I didn't know the tune, the way my mind would think, and this necessarily wouldn't be how you would think about it. You can have your own relationship to how you think about the intervals. But besides hearing it, if I can, I am going to be thinking that the note that I'm looking at, for example, here, C6, I want to go down a major third. So that means that C is up a major third from where I want to be. What is the major third of C is the major third of what? A flat. So basically I'm sort of thinking of as if every root note, even if it's D minor 7, I'm thinking D is a major third from what? B flat. B flat, D, F, right? That's 1, 3, 5. So I'm thinking B flat on that chord, and then I'm applying the chord quality, B flat minor 7. So, and then when we get to the bridge, F. F is the third of what? The major third of what? D flat. And so you really, really, as I say, have to be familiar with not only intervals, but chord construction and all kinds of harmony and theory. Well, the good news is this is a limited amount of information. It's a lot, but it's not infinite. The application of it is infinite, but understanding like what these chords are made of and how they are constructed is finite. And so you can do it. And I also want to give you one other little sort of tip as far as a practical thing. If you are reading a chart that you don't know, and you're seeing a lot of extensions on the chord, for example, D7 flat 9 sharp 9 flat 13 or something, right? You can just dismiss the extensions unless it says either something that affects the 5, so a flat 5 or sharp 5, or something that affects the 7. So for example, a minor major 7. Otherwise, any 9s or 11s or 13s, just dismiss them. It doesn't matter. It's fine. It really truly doesn't matter. So what you're thinking about is just the basic chord quality and any affectation of the 5 or the 7 that's in parentheses or as a tension Otherwise, just dismiss and think about, okay, this is basically just a major sound. I don't care that it's a major 9. It doesn't matter. I'm just getting to the very guts of it so that I can quickly make that transposition to the new key, because I don't care about that other stuff in the new key. What I care about is changing the root of the chord and then applying the chord quality after that. So I hope this was practical and helpful in some sort of way. And if you're interested in learning more, I've got a PDF below if you'd like to check that out. Thank you so much for coming. I hope that it was helpful as always. And once again, remember, straight ahead and strive for tone.